What's up, waves? Welcome back to Anime Lane. I'm Notorious. Joining me once again today is Shaun.
Hold on, I had a funny thing to say. I should have done it in the Dan episode, but I'm gonna say it now. Hello, I am Rocket Engine Valve.
If you don't get that, go watch Dan to Dan. You'll have to watch like
Exactly.
11
And then-
episodes.
And then listen to our episodes
Yes.
on it. They're really cool.
Yes.
Just we don't have Melina on them again, but it's okay. We can carry those episodes just between the two of us. We promise.
We have zero idea what we're going to be talking about today.
We're recording this episode raw. We have no idea
We
of any plan.
as much as it may sometimes seem like we have no idea what we're doing, we generally come in with an idea of what to discuss.
We are controlled madness. This is not controlled madness.
Yes, today we have no clue. So right now it's like the middle of January, so like it's post Christmas, post New Year. Everything else prior to the last week's episode, Dan to Dan second half, was all done before Christmas. So like we got to like December 17th and finished everything up. And then that was us. It was actually later than that. It was like the 22nd, 23rd.
23rd, I think it was. Like, we recorded that, was it Dan to Dan, like, first half?
I think so, yeah, and Silent Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I sat on, like, for a chunk of Christmas Eve, finishing all of that, like, editing-wise, and thumbnails, and exporting, and sort of also... finishing up like the new look for everything, which we kind of talked about it in that episode, but I hadn't actually sat down and figured it all out. So
because we're so good at planning ahead.
Well, I had nothing. I needed episodes to work with to create the new look, and I didn't have any. So, yeah, I had to wait until we had done a whole bunch of stuff and then figure out like what the new look was gonna be, how I was gonna do it. And the only reason I'm rambling about this is because you'll know, because Shaun is kind of usually involved in most of my process in terms of like the creative stuff, figuring out ideas. I'll send him work in progresses and get feedback and all that sort of stuff.
I am prime creative consultant, which is the title I'm giving myself now.
Yeah. And if you're wondering why Melina isn't, it's just because she's a lot more generally busier. And so like getting feedback from her would take like business days, and I don't have business days.
We do notify her, obviously, on this stuff.
Yeah.
We don't do all of this behind her back.
Yeah. Usually during our weekly calls and meetings and stuff like that, like I'll show her progress and updates and stuff like that, and wherever it's necessary. It's kind of come to the point of like thumbnails and stuff is just generally trusted to me to make whatever the right call or what I think is the right call is.
And
anyway,
if you're stuck between like multiple choices that you're not sure if that's when you'll send it to me and I'll give you my input.
So I sent like work in progresses to you of like the new video look. If you're watching this on YouTube, it looks slightly different than it used to, and of course part of that is working out like the post process, because all of that's just done natively in Premiere now. It was partially After Effects before, where the waveform would come from, and then in After Effects it was basically just a background image with a slight blur and a couple of little lens flare elements added in just to make it look a little nicer at the background. Whereas now I wanted to create like a VHS style like look to it, like a sort of retro-ish feel, because I don't know, that's something that sort of I know appeals to at least me and Shaun. I don't know about Melina personally, but like she didn't shoot me down when I brought the idea up. She seemed happy with it. So I worked on an initial look of how I thought I would do it, which was a couple of different like layering ideas along with a visual effect that kind of created the misaligned scan line effect that you get on VHSs, where it warbles and stuff like that. And so I sent it to Media Encoder to export a test file for. And I believe I did like 90 seconds just to get a rough impression of how it looked when it was completed. Because doing, like, checking it in Premiere, like, the window's only so large. If you open it up as a project monitor, you don't always necessarily get the same impression, because also, like, the way Premiere works, you're usually, unless you've got like a super high-end like workstation graphics card, you're probably not looking at it at full resolution. If you're playing the video, you're gonna have to set it to like half or quarter quality. For me, it's half right now, I think, because I'm working in 4K. But so you don't get the full impression. So I try and export it, and the 90 seconds wanted to take like an hour or an hour and a half, and I was like, oh, okay, how long would a full episode take? And it was going to take like 30 plus hours, and the counter was just going up and up. It hadn't actually settled when I sent a screenshot to Shaun showing like 30-hour estimation. So I was like, okay, well, that idea doesn't work. Let me throw that out.
Yeah.
And then I settled for just finding like a sort of like static filter that someone had already created, and then just using some of the filter techniques that I had been using along with the, because it was the scanline video effect thing that I had been trying to do that was creating so much problem, because it was so intense to create it over like so much video, I guess. And so yeah, I landed on what it looks like now, but it was that fact that like I was like, oh, I don't want to, I may have to throw out this whole idea. It was a thing that came up at first when I realized, oh shit, this is gonna take like 30 hours to come out. And I can't do that. There's no actual way that I could keep up with everything if I had to export every video at 30 plus hours, because that would also mean running my PC constantly.
Yeah, that's just not practical.
No, so yeah, I was like, fuck, I don't want to have to throw this idea out. So eventually I landed on what it looks like now, which is all just opacity and layering effects, and it takes like less time than the previous look did.
Yeah, significantly.
Yeah, but even just like how our videos used to look on the channel, like the whole waveform thing, like those were about 30 minutes depending on how long the episode was, whereas now these are about 15 minutes to export, because it's, yeah. But I've also bumped up the audio quality in case anyone is interested in that. If you're on YouTube, it's maxed out to the AAC encoder's bitrate settings, which is, I believe, 512 kilobits a second. I don't have Premiere open, so I can't check. But yeah, it's about twice as much as it used to be. So it's a big step up from what you get if you're listening on like Spotify and something like that. But we're just spoken voice, so it's not going to be super noticeable. It's just I wanted to not have YouTube encode something twice to like a lower standard, so I wanted to be working off a higher quality file. I could make every one of them a wave file, just the straight up like unedited mix, or well, the edited mix I should say, that comes out of Audition when I'm done, but that would be ridiculously large. So I was like, yeah,
exactly.
That's a little tidbit behind the scene thing I just wanted to talk about. But yeah, anyway, I played Stellar Blade. I guess that's
that's something you did.
Yeah. I also got sick over New Year, which was fun. I'm still recovering from that. I kind of mentioned it in Dan to Dan. You can probably hear it.
Yeah, it's coming out a little bit now that you've just had that little sugar monster.
Worming its way into my voice. Yeah, I don't know what I had. I had like a head cold, I guess, where I had a sore throat, sore sinuses, and sore head, that eventually culminated in me losing my voice. It's for a solid week.
Whatever you had, I'm convinced it's a thing that's just going around like the whole country, because my mum had I told you my mum had a very similar thing like a week before you did. And it was the same symptoms, like she lost her voice, she had like headaches and stuff, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it must be going around, because you're not the only person
Yeah.
met that had this thing.
There's currently, I think, 3 people off at work sick as well. So there is something.
Greg's.
Yeah, Greg's.
Deep lore.
So there's some. I think there's like 3 or 4 things going around because like I've heard a few people talk about having completely different symptoms. So you know that's fun. But that also meant that this recording session was delayed as well.
Yeah,
like
we were gonna record this a week ago,
and I literally could not talk by the Tuesday anyway. I sent like a small voice clip that I may throw in here just to show what it sounded like. But the Monday it was already giving out, and then by Tuesday it actually hurt to talk. Wednesday it had cleared up just a little bit. I had some voice, like we were in a call. And at some points I sounded like RFK Jr. for sure.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, thankfully it's cleared up now. I was worried work was going to cause it to like, you know, revert back, to lose the progress forward. Because like I work a Thursday, Friday, and then a Sunday, which is like not a lot of time in between each of those shifts to really get enough vocal rest, so it could have reset like 3 days of progress from, you know, when I lost it. But thankfully, no, we're good. I still can't like sing. Like I can't push my voice. That's the best frame of example I can use is like singing. I can't push my voice, but I can talk, so that's fine because I'm a yapper. I like talking. But yeah, so I played Stellar Blade. Get back to that, sorry. So I got that for Christmas, and that was fun. I knew hardly anything about the game when I got it, because we kind of talked about this, where it's like the marketing was not great for the game. I don't think it didn't really show off much of what the game was. It had some game.
What I could see now.
Yeah, it had some gameplay stuff, but I think all the gameplay stuff you could kind of garner was like, oh well, it's Dark Souls with hot women. And then the game came out, and basically it was just, yeah, the impression was it is Dark Souls for horny adult men who think gaming has gone down the toilet because of DEI.
Which, you know, when I hear that, it's not really selling me on the game, I'm gonna be honest.
It really, like, I think it ruined the game's potential as like a strong IP. Not to say I think the game was necessarily going to get a sequel either way. Like I don't necessarily know if it needs one. But it did kind of ruin the perception of the game, I think, to the point that like I knew nothing about it when I got it, but it was like I put it on the list of things I asked for Christmas because I was like, well, I'm not going to spend my own money on it, probably, so...
Yeah. I mean, that I can attest to that as well, because I mean, not to say I had much interest in it just to begin with, because I'm not much of, like, a Souls player, or, like, even... particular. I mean, I like the art style it's going for, that sort of anime-esque, almost Final Fantasy anime-esque sort of video game look, like, you know. That's not an immediate pull for me, even if I do like that art style, so I wasn't entirely pulled towards it, but when I saw that like most of the game was being like talked about by a certain kind of gamer that I very much do not like, just in general, it was when I was like, okay, I kind of just don't want to interact with this whole circle, so I didn't really look further into it, which sucks for the game itself, I'm aware, because I'm sure the game itself is really good, and you played it.
That is the thing. It's a very solid 7 out of 10, really. I think it's really only held back by the fact that I think they maybe could have done a little bit more with what they had. It kind of falls into the Rebirth problem of there's a lot of shit to do in the open world, and a lot of it's kind of tedious. Like, you're not forced to do it. I do want to add that, like, that compared to, like, Rebirth, where some of it you kind of have to do a decent chunk of the side stuff just to not fall behind the scaling of the game's story in terms of, like, leveling.
For context, by the way, Final Fantasy VII
Sorry,
Rebirth. In
yes.
case you're unaware, we're so used to saying Rebirth, I realize we should probably specify just in case.
Yeah, sorry, I do mean Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second in the remake series of that One Games remake.
Great game, so much stuff.
Yes, and you know it's good. Like it's really good gameplay. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to, because I think if you're like me, where you've got like a really solid base of Souls games under your belt, like I've literally played not every one of them. Hold on, someone's at my door. I need to be back in a couple of seconds.
Okay, cool. I'm alone. The recording is stuck on me. I can say whatever I want. Don't say the B-movie script. Don't say the B-movie script. Future Michael, if you're listening into this, like, from the future, I'm begging you, I'm pleading you, if you can, please put the Monty Python intermission music here for like, even if it's just like 2 seconds and then just cut back, please. It'd be really funny.
I heard the doorbell going, but it didn't seem that loud. Maybe
Either that or just the get on with it clip.
I returned.
You are back.
Yes, it was an Amazon delivery.
I just sort of rambled to myself in the intermission. You can listen back to that later if you want.
Yeah, where was I? Stellar Blade.
Cut back.
There we go. So yeah, as I was saying, I have like a solid base of the Souls games under my belt. Like I played most of them the last year now, back to back, which is slightly insane of me, I guess.
Yeah, that was fun to witness, and the whole time there was a part of me like, why are you a masochist, my man?
The thing is, they're not. I don't find them that difficult anymore. They're challenging, sure, but they're not
humble brag.
I don't know, like maybe I'm in the camp of get good now, but like
you're one of them.
It's odd. Like I kind of expected. I think a big challenge of Souls games is when they release on their original consoles, specifically Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. The 1 and 2 released on Xbox 360, and then 3 released very kind of late into the PS4's PS4's lifespan. The Pro was just around the corner, I believe. And they all ran like shit. Like they targeted at 30 FPS because that was there was a point in time where we were okay with that.
Yeah, there was actually.
Yeah, and they all targeted that. It doesn't mean they were always hitting it, and the vast majority of the time they weren't. they couldn't. Like there's a specific area of one that literally just tanks the entire time you're there. Fucking Blight Town.
It's a blight, alright.
I mean, even playing it at 60 FPS, it's the worst part of the game. But once you kind of remove the instability from it and you play it at like actual 60 solid 60 FPS, or in the case of 3 for me, I was playing at 45 because I was playing on the Steam Deck. It's fine. Like, it's not that challenging anymore. Like, I think half of it comes down to the game not being able to run correctly.
That was part of the challenge. The slowdown was the point.
Because now if you play Bloodborne on, like, PS5, it's still 30 FPS, but it kind of never dips, so, like, it's not that big a problem.
God, it reminds me so much of, like, the Star Fox thing, where, like, the very original Star Fox game, because it was so graphically intensive for the Super Nintendo, it obviously had a lot of slowdown, like, in gameplay, but the thing is, they kind of made that, like, intentional after a point, and designed, like, levels and stuff around that slowdown, so if you like overclock it in like an emulator or whatever and get it to like smoothly, the game becomes a lot harder because you're moving much faster than intended.
Yeah, so anyway, Stellar Blade, like that's the immediate thing. Like if you're familiar with Souls games, you go in kind of expecting like a Souls game esque style. Which is funny because I was continually screaming during the prologue, stop giving me tutorials, please, for the love of God, stop it. Stop interrupting me, let me get on with it.
I understand the drill, just let me go.
But then you kind of realize, like, you can't do a lot of the standard things that you can do in, like, other character action games like this, where you can interrupt your attacks by blocking or dodging, whereas like block and dodge take a little bit of time to kick in Stellar Blade, so you need to be a bit more cautious for stuff like that, and it takes a while to get the rhythm of parrying, blocking, dodging, perfect parry and perfect dodge, which are like where, you know, you'll get to execute some special move thing, and that's where kind of like I think the game gets away from itself in terms of like how deep the combat system kind of is. It's simple on its surface, and then you realize that there's more you can do, but then you realize once you get the skill tree there's even more you can do, but good fucking luck pulling any of it off, because it's like there are several attacks, counters, that's the word I was looking for. There's several like counter types that you can unlock for perfect parrying and perfect dodging, and I could not pull any of them off. I unlocked all of them, and I legitimately, following the tutorial that the game gives you within like the training sphere thing, couldn't like figure it out. It's like when it explains, you know, when you pull off a perfect parry, for example, hold in the attack button and then press the heavy attack button and you'll perform this counter. I could never do it. And then like every other one is the same thing, and like every other one also then builds off of that as well as you get higher up. So it's like once you've done counter 1, you can then press this button to initiate counter 2, but you must have completed counter 1 to complete counter 2, and it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't do counter 1, let alone counter 2.
Or counter 7.
But yeah, so it is fun, and I think it's an interesting world, though the interestingness of the world is sort of directly tied to how much of the side content you're interested in doing. So if you're just looking to play the story start to finish without going off and doing much of that side content, you might be left a little disappointed by what the story offers and then the endings that it offers on the back of that, which is where sort of like the different endings and like the secret ending and New Game Plus kind of comes into it, as it's, you're kind of encouraged to, you know, do multiple runs, which I, you know, Souls games kind of do that as well, New Game Plus and stuff like that. Fucking the first Dark Souls, as soon as you've beat the game, you literally don't get an option now, you're sent back to the start again with to start New Game Plus. You just get the opening cutscene again, you're like, oh fuck, okay.
Fucking do it again.
But yeah, so it's fun. Like, I think it had potential to be more. Like, it looks great, it plays great. There's only a couple of places where the frame rate kind of takes a hit, and thankfully it's never during combat, which is a big thing. Is that, like, I kind of expected combat situations to possibly be where it would take knocks, but it was really only like the main hub city where, like, if you were running around, you would kind of notice it drop and chug a little bit, whereas everything else was like perfectly fine, which was like damn impressive considering the current state of video games right now when it comes to stability. But yeah, it could have been a lot better. I will go back to it. I want to get the platinum, and the only reason I didn't really go for the platinum when I first finished the story like about a week or two ago is I was still in the midst of being sick, and I just could not stomach the idea of doing it all over again at the time. I was like, no, take a break.
That's very fair.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing. Just Well, I played Sonic Adventure as well. I just
Yeah, I was
finished
gonna
that.
say you're not escaping Sonic
No.
Adventure. I'm gonna remind you of that.
Yeah.
You
I
just
knew you
finished
would.
that like yesterday.
I knew you were probably going to want to bring that up.
Yeah, the greatest game of all time, Sonic Adventure 1.
The best 6 out of 10 I've ever played.
Honestly, yeah, that is Sonic Adventure 1. I love that game to death, but like to anyone who is sane, I can't imagine they're gonna rank it above maybe a 7 if they very much liked it.
It is a good game, and it's very impressive for the console and hardware that it came out on. I'll give it that.
Before it was botched in the ports.
Yes, because I should probably add I've been playing it on PC, but with like all the mods to like fix everything wrong.
I insisted when you first got that. I remember I was like, if you're gonna play this game, you need to download better SADX at the very least to make the game functional.
Yeah.
I refuse to let you judge it on the botch port of a botch port.
Yeah, because it's based on the wait, okay, so it came out in the Dreamcast and it was ported to the GameCube.
Yes.
Then it was ported to
the PC in 2004, or the original PC release, which then became the basis for the HD ports in 2010.
I see.
I want to say on PS3 and 360, and the modern Steam version, which came out a little later, is based on those HD ports.
Man,
it's been through the ringer. And every time the biggest like, I'm gonna go into this, I'm so sorry to anyone who doesn't care, but the biggest problem was when it was moved from Dreamcast to GameCube, because that's when they did the whole director's cut, like DX version, where they changed a lot of the textures, they updated the models, and completely reworked the lighting. Stuff like the models, specifically on characters, I'd say is an improvement. There's a lot more detail in there, just in how the characters actually looked. Everything else, from the texture changes to the lighting system, was just a downgrade, in my opinion. Just like when I look at comparisons. But it was the one that most people probably played because it was on the GameCube, which, even though it didn't sell as well as Nintendo usually does, it still sold more than the fucking Dreamcast. Rest in peace. So most people played that, so obviously that was going to be the basis, especially when it was ported to PC, for any updated version, which then added their own problems of breaking the lighting system. Some graphic got more and more garbled as it went on, and just overall it just sort of degraded a piece by piece every time it's been ported. So if you're going to play Sonic Adventure, get some mods to convert it back to its original Dreamcast state.
Yes, though I do recommend turning off the Dreamcast character models, because I'll be honest, Sonic don't look like Sonic to me in the Dreamcast model.
The fanboy in me wants to argue it very much is a transitional stage between the classic and modern styles, that original model, so I want to give it some leeway. But the updated models are just better.
Yeah. they you know, if you're doing it without mods, they kind of look a bit plasticky. They kind of have this like toy look to them. But if you're playing it with the Dreamcast lighting and like corrections and stuff, they for the most part look a lot better. There are a couple of times where it's a bit oof, but I think there's a lot of times where the game just kind of looks a bit oof in general. Anyway,
at the end of the day, it is a game from 1998.
Yes,
1998, I think. And it was a launch title for the Dreamcast, which was the weakest of the 6th generation. So, you know, you're gonna have to give it a bit of leeway on that one.
Of course. And I was playing it on the terms the game expected. I had a mostly fun time. Mostly because man, there's 3 characters in there that I specifically didn't have a lot of fun playing as.
Did you not like Knuckles?
I was not a fan of Knuckles.
Aww.
It's that fucking radar. It's just and the camera control is just sucks for his gameplay style. So it made that more frustrating than I think it needed to be. It made it much more cumbersome to play, because when you realize there's a whole fucking extra like vertical section to Casinopolis that you didn't know was there when you played as Sonic and Tails, I just wanted to Kieran myself.
I want to give you a heads up because I know you said you're going to play SA2. I'm not sure how soon, but... And I think you're aware that that kind of gameplay mechanic does come back with the Knuckle and Rouge stages in that game. And I want to say the stages are a little more interesting in SA2, but there are also some moments where they go a bit fucking overboard in terms of space. So, you know, mileage may vary when you get to that point as well.
I mean, I downloaded the better radar mod to fix the fact that it only let you find one at a time for some fucking reason.
For some reason, I still don't understand why they changed the radar for SA2 vanilla, where like instead of doing the SA1 thing where it doesn't matter which of the 3 emeralds you're near to, the radar will let you know when you're close.
Yeah.
SA2, there's a set order that the radar cares about. If you're right next to like emerald number 3, it won't ping you. So you could like walk past it and not even realize until like you're 15 minutes into the stage.
Yeah.
Which is why the only mod I'd say is absolutely fucking necessary for SA2, just to make those stages bearable.
I wasn't a fan of Amy. Thankfully, it's like the shortest of all of them.
Yeah. Technically, Biggs is the shortest, but that is sort of dependent on how well you can deal with his mechanic.
Yes. Amy's is the shortest for me. Most frustrating because, like, her movement is so odd. Like, she takes so long to build up speed, except you can jump and then attack in midair and she'll just randomly hit full speed. But then if you keep attacking whilst running, you actually move faster than if you were just, running normally.
Yeah.
Which took a while to figure out, which made those sections where you're trying to, like, evade a robot so annoying. But also, hers has the most, like, forced camera perspectives of all of the, like, game. Or at least in the sense of, like, they're forced in a way where it's so hard to control the character. Because it's the first 3D game, which means it has that thing of whichever way your camera's, or whichever way the camera is facing, means whichever way the joysticks work changes. Like, that's my only kind of gripe, is that you'll be running as Sonic, running forward, and then the camera will move in front of you, and you've got to move the sticks so that you're pointing it back towards you so that you're running towards the camera. And Amy's section has like a part where it keeps moving to the side, but it's like a mirrored wall. And so I was running into the wall because I had no actual idea which Amy was the real Amy, because they all have the same level of transparency and stuff. So it was kind of,
They got really ambitious with some of her sections and very weird places, which I don't know why they felt the need to experiment halfway through the game.
Yes, yeah.
You can really start to feel, oh, you're kind of padding for time now for that full price tag, aren't you, Sega?
And then there's Big. The fucking purple cat. Who's chasing a frog.
Froggy.
And you have to fish. Does it ever explain the fishing mechanics? Not really, no. You just...
You want a tutorial?
A little bit, yeah, because I figured out how to cast it, but then I was pressing the buttons when I caught something, and it didn't seem to be doing anything at first. So I had no idea what I was doing. Did I pull it back with the joystick? Did I reel it in with one of the action buttons that sometimes do all the same thing, but depending on the character, it may not. It may do something different.
You don't know how to fish, nerd?
And that fucking frog. Specifically that first level, the AI is so difficult to attract to the bait, because it's in this the biggest pool of the whole section, and you have to do it specifically from the side, and you have to guess. You only get a circle on top of the water, and you can kind of see the frog underneath, but you don't know if it's gonna actually go where that frog is circling. And if it's not directly within its line of sight, it's not gonna go for it. But also,
you gotta like actively put it in front of him, like, take the fucking bait.
And you can kind of control the bait. You think, naturally, every other fishing minigame and any other video game, you cast the line and it bobs in the water. No, this fucking thing sinks, and you gotta control it with the joystick.
Yeah.
Don't move it to the left or right, because it will go in the opposite direction, and your brain will never comprehend that, because the fixed camera perspectives are shit.
I can tell you right now, you begin to comprehend it on playthrough 7.
I'm not playing this game 7 times.
I have. It's only it's only now I can really say I sort of kind of understand how to master Big's fishing minigame, and it's a skill I'm ashamed of.
And then there's reeling it in. Fine on every other stage, except the first one, because there's a little extra wall in that pool where everything just gets caught on it. And you have to fight it over this little extra piece of geometry. But the line can snap, and every time it snaps, Big just fucking kills himself.
It's like I always imagine the line snaps, and immediately Big's like, my line's gone. I have nothing left to live for. And he just jumps off the fucking park into the weird void in whatever the hell this amusement park is.
Yeah. Oh, man. It challenged my sanity. Especially, the ice level, where there are several bodies of water. Also, you can go and find power-ups if you want to. And I did.
It has one useful power-up, and it's mandatory. Everyone else is just a lure upgrade to get bigger fishes.
Yep.
I don't know why you'd want to do side stuff in Big's story of all things, but there you go.
You don't want to catch big fish, so you can get a marginally better level rating.
It's to get that A mission rank, which isn't the same as every other ranking system in future games. They're actual missions.
Yeah. I got C on every single one. I did not get a single B or A in my entire playthrough on any character.
It's because the first time you go through a level, you get C, because that's just completing the level normally. Whereas the B version is, if you replay the stage, you have to do it with 50 rings, and I think the A version is like a time trial or something. Like I said, it's very different from every other game after this.
Man.
They were just finding themselves.
Yeah.
Especially with Big. Big was totally supposed to be there and had a crucial element in the overall story.
Oh God.
Why did Tikal show him the flashback? I'm still on that.
Yeah, why does he get the most important part of that whole flashback thing? That every single character gets a flashback section. And most of it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Most of it's meaningless.
I don't know what Tikal's mindset was throughout, why she's here and what she's doing as an orb, but it seems to be she goes up to these 6 idiots and it's like, okay, one of you has to help me. I'm just gonna see which one is best. And then she goes through. The only ones who are close to helping are Sonic, Tails, and maybe Knuckles, because Knuckles has an actual, connection to the Echidna tribe. But she shows them random scenes that have nothing to do with whatever their actual stories are. And then she doesn't show them anything else. So they're like, okay, that was weird, I'm just gonna move on. So by the time she gets to Big, she's like, okay, you've got to help me. I'll show you the most interesting part. And Big's not taking anything in. Yeah. Because Big doesn't have a brain.
No, Big just stares into the endless void. He doesn't... There's nothing there.
What Tikal sees is her tragic and horror and traumatizing backstory. Big is just having the SpongeBob milk clip in his head.
Oh, it's so funny because she then appears. And, okay, so you then have to play Gamma's story, the final one, arguably one of the best in terms of story, because it's the most disconnected, it's just kind of fun. And the
Gamma could have had his own game.
Yeah, and the gameplay's like of the most like variation in terms of like every character has a gimmick, and his is like completely different from everyone else's. I think it's actually the most worthwhile of all the other character stories.
Yeah, Sonic is basic Sonic stuff. Tails is just racing. Yeah, like through the stages, which is great for speedrunning. I find myself replaying his stages a lot just for fun.
Yeah.
Knuckles is the treasure hunting. Amy's gameplay style is being shit.
Yeah.
Big is being worse, and Gamma is being emotionally driven, blasting stuff.
Yeah. And then you get Supersonic. And then, and like, this is the culmination of the story, a story that does not make sense, because everyone's cutscenes are slightly different, even if it's the same fucking situation. Everyone's cutscenes are slightly different. So you're not getting
their perspective.
Kind of, but at the same time, like, it doesn't help build a larger story, which Supersonics is the culmination of. And then Tikal shows up as an actual, you know, she unorbs herself and talks to Sonic like he's seen the entire flashback sequence, except no, only us as the player has seen this entire thing unfold. Everyone else has seen a small, little part of it.
I love that. She must be going up to Sonic, and he's just like, "What? Who the fuck are you?" like really?
Doesn't Sonic just see a burning building at first?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's all he sees. That's his flashback. Everyone else arguably gets more information than him.
I wonder if the implication is supposed to be that Tikal actually shows him like everything that goes on. We just don't see it because we've already seen it with everyone else, but the game doesn't really telegraph that.
Yeah. Then it's just,
he suddenly understands it all by like the end.
Yeah. Then he, Supersonics, it's the power of friendship. Open your heart plays. It's not...
It is a cool like set piece for a final boss.
It's cool.
The gameplay isn't the best.
Try not to get stun locked the entire second fucking phase, because that can happen. Because if you get hit by one of his like homing attack things, you cannot recover in time to avoid the next one, and you will just continually get hit over and over and over, and you'll have to restart the stage. That totally didn't happen to me. Twice.
No. Hey, at least if you game over, you can just start the story again and just skip to the boss fight.
Yeah. Except when every time he moves, you can't skip that cutscene. You gotta just let that play out.
Also, Station Square is still fucked, by the way, at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah. Good thing that never comes up again.
No, this is the last we see of it.
Yeah. Don't they go to... Well, it looks like San Francisco, but I don't know where it is.
San Francisco Zone.
Is it actually San Francisco?
No, it's not given a name. It's never given an actual name.
Wow.
Whatever the city they're in SA2, everyone just calls it San Francisco Zone.
Damn. He's faster than Sonic. He's faster than Sonic.
Faster than Sonic. It's going to be really hard not to quote the Snapcube dubs whenever you're playing SA2.
It's going to be weird playing it with the actual like story in it, because I've literally only ever seen the Snapcube fan dubs for SA2. So it's going to be hard not to imagine Robotnik's complete crash out during the Dark story?
I like the final story. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Everybody fuck my wife.
Maria explodes.
Honestly, better than the actual scene, that one. That is Shadow's character down to his bare essentials.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
I'm SA1.
Yeah, it's ambitious. I'll give it that. Whether everything works out in execution, though, that's, debatable.
I still have a big, guilty pleasure over the game, and I'll still, every few years just play for the whole thing.
Yeah.
When I want, just because I like the game that much, and I've got enough experience to handle its bullshit.
I think the one thing I find the strangest, and this isn't, tied to story, this isn't tied to like enjoyment or anything, is that it's got these open world hub sections, which every one of them, including Egg Carrier for some reason, has a Chow zone.
A Chow garden.
A Chow garden. And I can't fathom the point during your playthrough that you actually stop and
it
do
is just
it.
an extra thing.
Yeah, it's just that weird thing where it's like it kind of has these open world elements, but never really does it feel like there's the space or time to go and do them. You kind of just have to stop everything dead.
I think I can give a little bit of context for this, and citation needed on the next fall thing, because I haven't seen many sources like talk about this, so this might just be a rumor that never got confirmed or anything, but I think that's partially evolved concepts from when originally Sonic Adventure was going to be an RPG-esque sort of game.
Okay, it would probably fit better more. Yeah.
So the hub worlds and like the NPCs, because you're never like encouraged to talk to the NPCs, but there is a surprising amount of dialogue from so many NPCs after every stage, and there's so many little subtle side plots. Like, I'm not sure if you ever like went to this place, but Station Square has like a sort of burger shop place that for no reason you can like just go into and talk to the people in there.
I seen it. I didn't know you could go in there.
You could go in there, yeah, but like there's a whole side plot where like the NPC working there is like the NPC working there is in a sort of like love, not triangle thing, but like a sort of like a side love story with like another NPC outside the store who like after every stage slowly gets closer into the store and is working up the courage to like ask him out.
Oh, okay.
And you can like talk to them and stuff, and like it ends with her like chickening out and then just getting a burger and then just like talking about it like right outside. But it's such a random little side plot that you don't have to interact with at all.
Yeah.
Most people don't even realize it's there, probably.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, there's a whole video, I saw it like yesterday at some point, where like someone just like goes through like all like the dialogue and stuff and like talks about all the side story and stuff, and you're not encouraged to search it out. Oh, it's just there in case you're curious. So I think the explanation for that is that it's sort of just a leftover from the concept of when the game was originally more like an RPG than a standard sort of platformer.
Ah, okay. That would make sense, because like, you know, there's these, like I mentioned, the open world hub kind of areas, they kind of feel a little dead, a little empty. Like they feel like there should be a lot more to do, where like you feel like, oh, I'll take a break in between these sections so I can go and do some of this side stuff. But there's nothing to do. There's a couple of NPCs that I did speak to and noticed, oh, you seem to have some kind of story, but like there's nothing that indicates come back after each stage and they'll have something new to say. There's a girl that stands out in front of the train station for pretty much the whole time, and like she talks about her dad being at work and all this sort of stuff, and I imagine that changes as the story goes, as you play through each stage. But like I never went back and talked to her. I just thought she had flavor dialogue that never changed.
And
the Chow
makes sense.
And then the Chow stuff is like very off to the side, and doesn't really feel like it gives any incentive to do it. Like I kind of walked in, got the brief rundown of it, and went, "Wow, that's a lot for just a random side thing. I'm gonna leave."
yeah. I think the closest you get, my internet is crashing a little bit. Hold on. There we go. I think the closest you get to like any of those like side world things that like is the most noticeable is probably like the little in-universe gameplay reason for why you can't go on the train at a certain point in the story, which is that the train workers are on strike.
Yeah.
And like if you talk to them, like even like on the just after Emerald Coast, they talk about how their working conditions are shit and they want to do something about it. So there's like a little build up to the strike that happens like halfway through Sonic's story or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it gets resolved like so that you can go back on the train to Mystic Ruins.
Yeah.
It's all that little side stuff like that that isn't as fleshed out as it could have been. which kind of leaves the whole game feeling a bit more unfinished than it really should.
Yeah.
And the Chow Garden stuff is like a whole side thing that is weirdly fleshed out as well.
Mm-hmm. You can also unlock, well, if you're playing the base version of this port, I don't think you can do this, but as you gain emblems throughout the game, you can unlock like the Game Gear titles.
Yeah, as little bonus like games.
Yeah. So there's an odd amount of like side stuff there that you can do.
DX added a whole like mission mode where you go up to these like mission emblems in like the hub world and do these extra sort of challenges. Purely just for fluff and extra emblems, so that at the end of it all you get a Sonic skin that changes him into Metal Sonic.
I did notice I did hear about Metal Sonic like as like a playable thing, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I seen him in Eggman's base, and I was like, is he in the game? And then it's just never actually addressed that he's there.
No. I mean, again, in the original Dreamcast version, that wasn't even like a thing. Like, he was only just in Eggman's like base, and that was it. It was only the DX version that added a reward for all the emblems.
Yeah.
For he's a skin. I'll just say, not worth getting all the emblems from. Just mod them in if you're on PC.
Yeah. Isn't it? Can't you also play as Super Sonic after beating the game through the first time?
No.
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 Oh. Maybe that was a mod that I was looking at. I thought there was like a thing where you could play as Super Sonic.
Not to my memory, no.
But yeah, it's fun. It's
the best 6 out of 10 you've ever played.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential just left on the table, I think, is how I could put it, because you fight Chaos 4
3 times.
3 times. And
you're lucky it wasn't a 4th time with like Amy or something.
But there's like, what, 2 or 3 versions of Chaos we don't see?
Yeah.
So...
Because you get Chaos 0 in the opening of the game. You get Chaos
2.
1 or 2.
We see Chaos 1, but then Eggman gives him another emerald and you fight him as Chaos 2. As both Sonic and Tails.
Where he gets like the big arms.
Yeah, and then we fight
Chaos 3 as
4.
Knuckles.
Yeah, Chaos 3 as Knuckles. Chaos 4 as Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic.
Which is the worst boss fight in the game because of how many times you fucking fight that thing.
Yup. And then you fight Chaos 6 twice. Once as Sonic, once as Knuckles. Or once as Sonic and once as Tails.
3 times. Once as Sonic, once as Knuckles, and once as Big.
Oh yeah, where you got a fish froggy out of him for some fucking reason.
If you're like me, I remember this clear as day. First time ever playing the game, I was like 11. I got to the big section, immediately fished for him, got him immediately. The boss fight was done in 6 seconds.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow. I'm so good at video games.
It took me a couple of tries because it's once again a mechanic that's not entirely completely explained.
It is a coin flip on whether that boss fight is done in 6 seconds or 6 minutes.
Yeah. Because, like, I guess if you're lucky, if you just tap X, he'll cast and catch Froggy, but I had to, like, aim. And getting the space to aim when there's a big fucking monster thing chasing you that will bite you and kill you is difficult.
It would have been really cool if in those instances where like it's a boss that multiple characters fight in their story, like if you're playing as Sonic, you actually have Knuckles with you fighting as well, or like maybe even have Big as just being a useless prick in the background. It's stuff like that that I think is a big reason why so many people want a remake.
Because I think they could have done like the other versions of Chaos as boss fights for other characters. Like Tails and Knuckles didn't also need to fight Chaos 4. They could have fought, you know, Chaos 3 and Chaos 5 or something like that. But no, everyone needs to fight Chaos 4.
Get in those fucking lily pads.
That boss fight's also just like not only do you have to play it 3 times, the second and third time are just tedious.
Yeah.
Because you know how it works, and it's that repetition of like, okay, well, I need to move between the lily pads. Oh, he's going to hit the water, so I got to jump to avoid the radial damage. Okay, he's got his head out of the water. Let me get in so I can hit him, rinse and repeat. And it's just...
Yeah, it's tiring.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to 2. I do really want to play 2.
I think 2 is a lot more like... It's a lot more focused in what it is.
Yeah.
It's not as like out there. I will say it's hard for me to choose which one I like because I really like how SA1 controls. Like I still think genuinely the way Sonic controls in SA1 is the best way he's ever controlled.
Oh, that's funny because
3D games.
I was not a fan of Sonic in this one.
I don't know. It's weird because some of the stages don't really help show it off either, but like the way like his momentum is and the way that like you can build up specifically with like the spin dash in this game as well. You can get some serious speed and serious air if you know how to use the spin dash like right in this game, and it's very satisfying to pull off. But some of the stages don't really take advantage of it unless you're like using some little tricks to skip half the stage.
Which, you know, I don't know because I've never played it before, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I also want to play some other Sonic games. I think once I finish SA2, I'm currently debating on whether to buy, like, Sonic Shadow Generations or maybe Frontiers or something like that.
I think Generations would be, like, a good one.
I also crave a bit more of Shadow, so... But I'm not sure I want to put myself playing Shadow again.
I would love to see you witness Shadow the Hedgehog.
I've played it before. I don't think I've ever finished... Well, I think I've gotten a couple of the endings, but like getting the endings are kind of just so annoying.
Yeah. 10 times. Don't play it 10 times. I did that.
You did do that. You were insane for doing that.
I was. I didn't even hate it. That's the worst part. I kind of like that game, I'm not gonna lie.
Would it be the GameCube version that's better to play than the PS2 version?
I played GameCube. Don't get the PS2 version of either Shadow or Sonic Heroes.
I was going to say Heroes because that's limited to 30 FPS, I believe.
I think it's the same for Shadow as well. They've cut the frame rate's cut in half for both. And certain like mechanics just are a bit more buggy. It's sort of a little bit like a watered down like equivalent of the DX like situation.
Yeah.
Not as drastic and maybe not as graphically like bad, but you know, there's just all these little elements that make it the worst way to play those games. So if you're gonna get them, find a way to play the GameCube or maybe the Xbox version. Oh
yeah, I forgot about the Xbox versions. I'll probably just go with the GameCube version because I do have a way of playing that.
What was that?
I totally have a GameCube, don't worry about it. I do have a Wii, so I do have a way of playing GameCube games.
I suddenly really want to play Echo the Dolphin. I just have this strong urge to play Echo the Dolphin.
Well, hey, Sega did re-register the Echo the Dolphin trademark.
I saw that actually. I saw that from a Blue Sky post from some Call Me Johnny who was like, "Well, I'm terrified."
Well, yeah, I guess that's Stellar Blade and Sonic Adventure. Very odd combination of topics. We're hitting an hour here now, so
yeah.
Unless you got anything else you wanna...
Not really. I've been sort of in a bit of a limbo on my gaming stage right now. I've sort of just been, ever since Christmas, I've sort of just been recovering mentally. Just from like that sort of limbo stages you get in like the last part of the year. So I've been drifting between. I did start The Witcher 3. I keep telling myself I need to go back to it. I just haven't gotten back to that swing yet.
I do need to get back to The Witcher 3 as well, but there's part of me that's like, it's gonna take a long time. So
that's getting me as well. It's a lot of a time sink, and like even though I've started it, I was like, there are other things I want to do like in between.
Yeah, I think maybe like, well, for both of us actually, starting at like only like, what, 2 months after our last Cyberpunk playthroughs, probably wasn't the smartest idea. I think we're still in that stage of like, let's play some shorter games. Let's not dedicate our time to a multiple 100-hour RPG.
Plus, I thought I could get like a second wing. I thought I could like play it off as like a second wind thing, but nope, it's not happening.
I thought I could maybe do that too, but then I forgot I also played a bunch of Final Fantasy XIV as well. So
there you go.
And I should probably actually, like, if I'm gonna dedicate time like that to a game, I should probably go and play the new expansion for 14, since I haven't actually played Dawn Trail yet. I just finished up the Endwalker stuff. So rather than replay a game I've already spent multiple hundreds of hours playing already, should probably do that.
For me, I feel so bad leaving like Witcher 3 because it's a game I've tried to get into before, and I have left behind before at a similar stage that I've actually gone up to already.
Yeah.
So like I do want to get back to it, and I do want to give it like the playthrough it deserves because I haven't played it before, but my brain is still like, I want to play like other stuff, shorter stuff that isn't going to be as much of like a dedication. So
yeah.
I ended up finishing up a New Game Plus playthrough of Silent Hill 2 in the meantime, and now I'm sort of kinda doing another playthrough of original Resident Evil 4, but like I'm a lot more looser on that. If I leave that, I'm not gonna mind. I've mainly been playing a bunch of Mercenaries as well, because I finally decided to try out the HD project for the Steam release, and at the same time I'm now comfortable using keyboard and mouse as a PC gamer, and that is very smooth on OG4. I didn't expect it to be so intuitive.
Yeah, I haven't played OG4
really
on the PC. I've played it, well, I have technically played it on the PC. I played it on my Steam Deck. But I do play most of the Resident Evil games when I'm playing them on PC with keyboard and mouse, so I sort of understand that being a more smoother experience. So maybe no, I shouldn't replay a Resident Evil game.
You're gonna do Resident Evil stuff, you gotta get on that project.
Oh, don't. That's the big thing, is it's like I want to replay some of the Resident Evil games, but then I'm like, but then there's also that project I want to work on, and I'm like, no. You need to put more space and time between it and your last playthrough, because the big thing for me is I'm worried about burnout and creating the not self-loathing, but the loathing of it by accidentally spending too much time.
You don't want to turn the series into a chore.
Yeah, exactly. If Capcom would just give us something new, even just an announcement of something, whether it's the next remake or the next mainline game, I think I'd be happy, and I could, wait for the next one to come out. But they won't.
I don't know when it's going to happen. Yeah, it's got to be at some point this year.
You would like to think, but it's Capcom, so you never know.
Yeah, they might be focusing all that energy on Onimusha now.
Yeah, because that was their big announcement for the Game Awards, was the new Onimusha game.
What a surprise, by the way.
Yeah.
I need to get on those original games now as well.
That's actually crossed my mind a couple of times recently. I was like, I should play Onimusha. Everyone talks about playing the Xbox version for the first game, but I'm going to play the PS2 version because
I'm going to find my ways to play the Xbox version and see how that goes.
Everything I've heard about the Xbox version is, it's better, but it's also more difficult. So I'm like, I don't want that. I just want to enjoy playing it.
Let them come.
I'm going to come.
I don't know if the recording's going to pick up our soundboard.
I have no idea.
Let's find out. Hell yeah!
Yeah, it did. I could see it. Yeah.
That's going to be a fun thing to find in the edit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we're doing right now. It devolved back to video games as usual.
We knew that.
Yeah, I mean, because I've been sick, I've also been playing like The Division whilst just watching random shit. So it's like, whenever I'm ill, I don't want to like use my brain. I don't want to like watch actual things. I don't want to like take things in. So like, I haven't really watched anything either. Like, I have watched a couple of films, which was quite a doozy of a back-to-back that I did between Hiroshima and Stalker. But I'll save that for like another time, because that's just a whole other thing. But yeah, or you can follow me on Letterboxd. I wrote reviews. Or I wrote a review for Hiroshima. It's hard to review Stalker. But yeah. We're rambling because, like...
We are. You said that we've been recording for an hour probably like 20 minutes ago.
Well, only like 10, 15. No, 10, 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll end it here. Things should be back to normal by next month. For the love of God.
Yeah.
We'll be back
reaching the end of our madness block.
Yeah, we should be back to recording in person with all three of us. Obviously, we've managed to work it so that January and February have been a balance of a little bit of Melina in there, along with us hosting the other episodes. So, yeah, it's not been as awkward as I was hoping it as I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be
worried.
Yes, I was worried about us having to do 3 months essentially without Melina around. I mean, it's obviously like a necessity of like recording and getting,
it happens.
It happens, and like I'm not against it. There's probably going to come a time where like me and Melina maybe have to do an episode together.
Yeah, depending on like where I end up.
Yeah, or like times where you guys maybe need to do stuff on your own.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
That would be hilarious. Because I was like,
it would be so nonsensical after a while. I can feel it.
There was part of me like, do I use the excuse of my not having a voice to make you guys?
What if I just lock you two in a room and then just record what you say and then just see what happens?
But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We will not ramble anymore. You can look forward to Evangelion, the second half of the rebuilds next week, which is funny to say because we are actually recording it next week for once. So yeah, we will see you guys then. Bye.
Bye-bye.